everybody. My name is Shahzada Isfahani. I am located out in the Cleflands, which is the greater Cleveland area. Today I am going to be doing an SCA 101 class with everybody. The focus is going to be on the MidRealm, although I will also be covering generic background of the SCA as well. So I'm going to go into a share screen with you all. I made a nice little PowerPoint for you. So one moment. Let's see. Okay. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said, this is SCA 101. And a little bit about me first. I always like to have a little bit of info about who teachers are, so I'm going to give you guys a little info about me. So as I said previously, my name is Shahzada Isfahani, and in the mundane world, my name is Eve Liebfried. I've been a member of the SCA since 2003, so it's been a little while. I began my SCA life out in the East Kingdom in the Barony of Concordia of the Snows, and in 2017, my husband and I moved out to the MidRealm and currently reside in the Barony of the Cleflands. I'm currently the chatelain of the Barony of the Cleflands, which I'll get into what a chatelain is in just a couple of slides. It'll make more sense then. Previous roles that I've had are demo coordinator and social media officer for the Cleflands as well. And I really enjoy helping newcomers learn about the SCA and become excited about the SCA and all the different things that we do, as well as to help people who are already established in the SCA find ways to stay engaged and also find ways to engage with newcomers as well. Okay, so our class overview, we're going to be going over what is the SCA, society and roles breakdown, awards, focusing on the MidRealm again, your first event, what to expect, and a little bit of how you can prepare, a few ways to become involved, as well as some contact and resources. I did get a little bit in depth in my slides. That way you guys have a little bit of a take home. I'm not going to get quite as in depth during the class. That way we have some time to go over questions and any sort of commentary that you might have as well. Okay, so what is the SCA? SCA is the Society for Creative Anachronism. Now, an anachronism is anything that is out of time and place. So us representing medieval people, that's an anachronism, for example. The SCA is a nonprofit educational organization with chapters around the world. So we might have friends down in Australia, people in Europe and across the US, everywhere. So it's really and truly a worldwide organization. The SCA began in 1966 in Berkeley, California with a tournament amongst friends. And everybody loved it so much that they started saying, when are we going to do this again? This was such a great time. When are we going to do it again? And from there, it just grew and grew into this worldwide society that we have today. The SCA recreates pre-17th century life and activities, and that's all peoples and cultures that fall underneath that time frame. And the pre-17th century period is what we refer to as the SCA period. So if you hear someone say, oh, is this period, is this not period, they're talking about pre-17th century. And the activities in the SCA can very broadly be broken down into arts and sciences and martial activities. So let's get a little bit into them now. So the arts and sciences are basically activities that are not specifically combat related. So these are the skills that were used in pre-17th century life. So the crafts, technologies, and skills practiced within the SCA period. It is just about limitless. And if it's something that someone did pre-17th century, I can almost guarantee you someone in the SCA is working on that. So it covers everything from, we do heraldry, fiber arts, cooking, weaving, the bardic arts, which includes dancing, music, storytelling, garb and jewelry making, all sorts of just incredible activities. And I guarantee you, if you go to an event and you talk to somebody who's doing a type of art, you will walk away from every event with a brand new hobby that you want to try out. And throughout the year, there are classes and tournaments of the arts across various kingdoms and groups. Classes may cover various historical topics, including sharing of research and studies, hands-on learning, or how to improve and better perform activities within the SCA. So you might have someone who is teaching a class on codes that were used by spies in medieval times. I took one of those classes and it was fascinating, and that's more of like a research class. You can also take a more hands-on class where you might be hand-making jewelry with somebody, or you might have someone that's doing more of a demonstration type of class like blown glass. So it's pretty limitless both in topics and types of classes that you can really take. We also have martial activities. So there's a wide variety of martial activities as well. One of the most common ones that people see is armored combat. This is the one where you see the people in armor kit and they're hitting each other with these rattan weapons. Now, with armored combat, we are recreating medieval tournament culture through chivalric and courteous displays of skill in practice, tournament, and melee scenarios. And it's based on an honor system. So what that means is if someone were to use one of our modern rattan weapons and they strike a blow that in real life would have taken your arm, let's say, if it was a real metal weapon, let's say. If that would have taken your arm, you are supposed to say that you have lost an arm. That's what we mean by an honor system. You have to count these blows as if they struck you with a real weapon in a real life scenario. And we'd use rattan weapons. Rattan is similar to bamboo, but it is solid instead of being hollow in the middle. And rattan also doesn't splinter like bamboo does, but it has a similar heft to what a real medieval weapon would have been. So that's why we use that. There is also fencing or rapier. It can be called either or pretty interchangeably. And we recreate styles of rapier combat from the very late part of the Middle Ages and Renaissance. And much like armored combat, it is also through practice, tournament, and melee scenarios. And they also follow a similar style of an honor system. It's different from Olympic style fencing in that you have a wider range of motion. So you're not just moving in a linear fashion. You can pretty much move anywhere that you're able to. And we also use live steel blades with blunted tips, a washer, a metal washer over the top, and a cap that's heavily taped on over that as a safety precaution as well. We also have cut and thrust rapier. This is sort of a newer field. So if you're interested in cut and thrust, you definitely want to look at what your local rules might be on it, and you want to talk to someone who, like a marshal, who might have a little bit more information about joining cut and thrust. So cut and thrust is kind of a hybrid between armored combat and our traditional rapier combat. It has more percussive type of blows than what we normally allow in regular rapier. So you tend to be a bit more rigidly armored for that one, just for more safety measures. We also have archery and thrown weapons. And these are always a lot of fun to see because you can have the traditional target style of what you would be throwing an axe at or using a bow and arrow against. Or we can have novelty themed shoots. These are some of my favorite things to see. So you can have sometimes cardboard cutouts of ogres and trolls, let's say, or silhouettes of people that you would be defending against, that you would be aiming at rather than a traditional bullseye. So we have target archery, which uses traditional style bows and arrows and focuses on natural materials for both the bows and arrows as well. You will not see a modern day compound bow on an archery list in the SCA. We also have combat archery, which uses bows and crossbows in armored combat, war, and melee scenarios. So you will oftentimes see these people on the same field as are armored combatants during melees, let's say. And they also have to be adequately armored just in case the melee combatants get up in their business. We also have thrown weapons, which include axes, knives, and depending on the event, spears. And these are all used in a monitored environment against targets as well. And one of the most exciting ones that I really enjoy watching is equestrian activities. So these are tournaments and games modeled on the training techniques used during the SCA period. Now, one of the best ways that I try to share what equestrian activities like this are similar to is if everybody has seen one of my personal favorite movies, A Knight's Tale. I know a lot of people love it or hate it because it's not really that historical, but when he's training to become a knight and learning how to do equestrian martial activities, there's a training sequence that shows a lot of great imagery. You have people who are using themed targets. They are practicing putting lances through rings. And there's also one of my favorite activities that's called a quintain. And that is, you have a shield and you have a body, and it's on a pivot. And as you ride, you hit the shield. That's what you're trying to do, at least. Whether you do it successfully or not, so equestrian is always a lot of fun to see. Okay, so now that we have a general idea of what some of the activities are, let's get into what a society breakdown is. So the society starts at the very top at the society or board of directors. We call that the BOD. So this is the overarching governing and organizational body of the SCA. Underneath the BOD are kingdoms. These are larger regional areas similar to a country, and there are various kingdoms around the world. So right now, I'm talking to you modernly from Cleveland, but Cleveland is part of the Middle Kingdom, or we also call it the MidRealm. There are also principalities. These aren't quite as common as kingdoms, but principalities are regional parts of a kingdom that have their own prince and princess, and they report to a kingdom. Below that is a barony. So a barony is a local group or chapter. They tend to have a larger population than some of the other breakdowns that we'll get into, and they report to a kingdom or a principality. Smaller than a barony is a shire. They are also a local group or chapter, but they have a smaller population than a barony, and they are independent of a barony. So a shire reports directly to a principality or a kingdom. And something that I didn't experience too much in the East Kingdom, but I've experienced a lot more here in the MidRealm, are cantons. Cantons are a smaller local group that's similar to a shire, but instead of being independent, they are actually subordinate or under the umbrella of a barony. So a canton will report to a barony. So let's go to our next slide. Now we have the roles breakdowns. So again, we have the BOD at the top, the overarching governing and organizational body of the SCA, and underneath the BOD are the king, queen, or the consort, which you would refer to these people as your royal majesty. They are the leaders of a kingdom, have a 6-month reign, and are often referred to as the crown. Underneath them are the prince, princess, or consort, and you refer to them as the highness or royal highness. Now, you achieve the role of becoming prince, princess, or a consort by winning armored combat at a crown tournament. So once you win that, you have a 6-month period after crown tournament to learn from the current sitting royals, the king and queen, and become the crown at the end of this 6 months. You complete 6 months of your prince and princess time, and then there's coronation, and then you become the next king, queen, and consort. We also have the kingdom seneschal. The kingdom seneschal is the legal and administrative representative of a kingdom. They are similar to a modern-day regional vice president or chief operating officer. We also have a landed baron or baroness, whom you refer to as your excellency or their excellencies if it's collective. So a landed baron and baroness are the regional representatives or figureheads of a barony within a kingdom. Candidates for this position submit their intentions for consideration, followed by a polling period where members of their barony may submit concerns or support of candidates to the Crown. The Crown then reviews these viewpoints and they choose a candidate based on this polling. And the landed baron and baroness report to the Crown. Now, each area has a wide variety of local officers. They might break them down a little bit differently, but each region has to have a certain core of officers. And they might be delegated down into different deputy positions, things like that. So these are just a few local roles. So much like the kingdom level has a seneschal, each local area also has a local seneschal, and their position is the chief legal and administrative representative of that area. You also have a chatelain. That's me. A chatelain is the newcomer liaison, or think of us as kind of a welcome wagon. So we connect newcomers to point people for various activities, and we help newcomers get started on their SCA journey. We oftentimes had demonstrations as well. Demonstrations are the public-facing outreach of the SCA to non-SCA members. So we go out and we share what we do, some of the exciting things that we work on. And we also use this as a great way to both share and recruit new people to the SCA. Sometimes the demonstrations might be delegated to a demonstration coordinator within a local group. One of the newer offices is the social media office. So the SMO, as it's called, promotes the representation of their locale through social media outlets, as well as promoting activities, news, and much more of what's going on within their area. Think of us as kind of the promoter. The SMO also moderates and administrates social media outlets, including forums and groups. So the SMO just tries to make sure that everything's above board and make sure that nothing goes crazy on social media outlets. There is also the exchequer, who's similar to a treasurer, a minister of arts and science, or the MOAS, who helps arrange and encourage A&S activities, challenges, and displays. There's usually a chronicler who documents the group history, a youth officer, a marshal who ensures that martial activities are safe and following kingdom and society rules, and a marshal also runs official practices. There's generally a herald who adds flavor and color to events, such as making announcements, speaking in court, registering arms and names, and a lot more. And there's also the web minister who maintains the group website and other internet technologies. So this is not an exhaustive list at all. Like I said, sometimes groups might have other delegated roles. So this is not an end-all be-all list here, just a general idea. Now, one of the most fun things with the SCA are awards. I'm not going to get too in the reads here because there are a wide variety of awards in the MidRealm. And while there are also kingdom awards, there are local awards as well. So I'm just going to be looking at awards at the kingdom level to not bog down too much. So you receive awards at what we call court. So court is a very fun aspect of the SCA that adds a lot of pomp and ceremony. It really is a great way to get that feel of the ceremony of the medieval or Renaissance times. So court is when the crown, their highnesses, which are the prince and princess, or local representatives like a landed baron and baroness gather their group, also called the populace, together to share information and news, as well as to recognize members of the populace for various things like service, arts, martial activities, etc. So, as I said, we're just going to focus on the Middle Kingdom here. So there are different levels of awards. There's a first level of award, which generally recognizes proficiency and dedication, followed by what we call a grant level award, which recognizes further excellence and dedication on a larger scale. Now, This may or may not be followed what we call society level awards or peerages. So I'm just going to be extremely succinct in wordage of what a peerage is. Peerages recognize that a person has exemplified and inspired others to a specific type of activity. It generally does take years of focus to reach peerage, and peerage is not a guarantee either. It's not that you have so many boxes that you check off and then you get a big peerage. So peerages are not guaranteed. The current peers may advise the sitting crown, but is the crown's final decision whether someone is what we call elevated to the ranks of a peerage. So we have peers that are called Pelican, Chivalry, Laurel, and Master of Defense, which we'll get into momentarily. Okay. We also have what are called titles. So titles aren't quite awards, but they are attached to a person by virtue of their rank, hereditary privilege, attainment, or a mark of respect. And they generally will have this title before the name, depending on the culture and the time period. So we have a duke or duchess, whom you refer to as your grace. Dukes and duchesses earn this title after they have successfully been king, queen, or consort 2 times. We also have a count and countess, whom you refer to as your excellency. They have been king or queen or consort at least once. There's also a viscount and viscountess. So they have been a territorial prince or princess or consort of a principality. And as we talked earlier about territorial baron and baroness, they are referred to as landed, and they are the figureheads of a barony and is a type of office. And then there are the court baron and baronesses. And you typically will have earned this for service to the crown that went above and beyond what's normally expected of mid-realm subjects. And at the bottom there, I have a few different pictures just showing what their type of coronets, as we call them, what they would look like. Each title has a slightly different appearance to these coronets. Okay, so into awards. So that first level award that I was talking about is an award of arms, or we call it the AOA, just to keep it short. So the AOA is usually the very first award that someone earns, and it is a society-wide award. It can be given for many diverse reasons. Recipients of an AOA are generally addressed as Lord, Lady, or Noble before their name, and it grants the ability to register a heraldic device and a badge. So in the mid-realm, recipients of an AOA may wear a simple metal circlet less than 1 inch in height and with no more than 1 protrusion. Now, this can vary depending on kingdoms. So if you are interested in wearing something like a circlet, I do suggest looking at what are called the sumptuary laws for your kingdom, just to make sure that you don't step on any toes. Moving on, we have service awards. Those that follow a service path participate in, help to plan, coordinate, and execute society activities. There are a wide variety of service activities available in the SCA. It can range from something like washing dishes at a local event after a feast, all the way to helping run, plan, and manage the massive 10,000 plus population event that is PenSec. Service awards in the mid-realm start with the Award of the Purple Fret. That's what we call like the AOA level, followed by Award or the Order of the Dragon's Heart. This is your grant level award. This recognizes further service and dedication. And the society-wide level for the service award is what's called a Pelican. This is the highest recognition that one can receive for service in the SCA. Now, the student or dependent of a Pelican is called a protege, and they will usually wear a yellow belt. That's how you can tell that they have a service relationship with a Pelican. A Pelican gives guidance and instruction and service to the society, to their protege. And you can recognize a Pelican by their cap of maintenance, which is a red cap with white edging and ermine spots. We also have Armored Combat Awards. So in the mid-realm, the AOA level of combat award is the Order of the Red Company. You can also receive the Award of the Dragon's Tooth, which is another AOA level. That one is more for a martial dramatic deed that goes above and beyond service normally expected of mid-realm subjects. The grant level award is the Order of the Gold Mace. And then the society level award is the Order of Chivalry, which you would call this person a knight, or there's a Master of Arms, who you would call master. So the difference between the knight and the Master of Arms is a knight swears fealty to the crown, a Master of Arms does not. You can tell a knight by their white belt, and they wear a gold chain around their neck. A Master of Arms wears a white baldric, which goes across the chest, and they also wear a chain. Knights may also wear spurs. A student or dependent of a knight is called a squire, and they usually wear a red belt. Okay. There are also various arts and science awards. So in the mid-realm, the arts and sciences kind of have a breakdown for the AOA level. So you have the Order of the Willow, which generally recognizes arts, and the Order of the Silver Oak, which generally recognizes sciences and or research. The grant level is the Order of the Evergreen, and the society level is the Order of the Laurel. The student or dependent of a laurel is called an apprentice and generally wears a green belt, and a laurel generally wears a laurel wreath on their head, or sometimes they might have a medallion with laurel wreaths on it. You have Rapier Awards as well. The AOA level is the Order of the Cavendish Knot. The grant level is the Company of the Bronze Ring, and the society level is the Order of Defense. A student or dependent of a Master of Defense is called a cadet, and usually will either wear a scarf on their arm, or they might have a colored collar that they will wear, or cords that they'll wear. Masters of Defense generally have a white livery collar that goes around their neck with a badge that has 3 rapiers with crossed tips facing the center. And I have pictures there at the bottom to give you an idea of what those look like. There are also martial awards, which include the Dragon's Barb for archery, the White Kempfram for equestrian, and grant level awards for the Greenwood Company for archery and Company of the White Lance for equestrian. Okay, so we've covered what the SCA is, we've covered what the roles are, we've covered various awards. So now you have a general idea, and we're leading up to your first event. So what can you do to prepare for your first event? First, you'll want to check out the event website. So I always suggest checking that out so that you can get an idea of what's in store at the event. What's the building layout? How much of it is indoors, outdoors? This is important so that you can check the weather. Because if it's going to be really sunny, you want to make sure that you have the SPF, you have parasol. If it's going to be rainy, you might want to bring rain boots and put that underneath your period appropriate pants. Another good thing to do is touch base with your local chatelain. Look up who the local officers are. The chatelain, the newcomer liaison, is a very useful contact to help connect you with people that participate in activities that you're interested in. That way at your event, you can meet up with them and discuss different ways that you yourself can get involved. And the chatelain is also a good point person to show you around the event and explain what you might be seeing and explain how the SCA works. You will also want to take into account garb. We call our clothing garb. We don't call it costumes because garb is clothing. It's what you wear. You're not just putting on a costume and going to a show. So you don't have to have perfect period appropriate garb. It's just an attempt that is expected. The chatelain can help get you in touch with what we call gold key. Gold key is loaner garb for newcomers. So you can either have gold key for your first garb, or if you're very adventurous, you can try to create your own garb for the event. And like I said, all that's expected is just an honest attempt at historical clothing. You don't have to be perfect for your first event, I promise. When you get to your first event, you're going to go to gate first. Now, this might vary what they call it depending on your region. I grew up always calling it troll, and then I moved to the MidRealm, and I'm like, what do you guys mean gate? What is gate? So you might have a word variance, but here in the MidRealm, I've mostly seen it called gate. When you arrive, you will check in at gate. Gate has waivers as well as site information about the event. There's oftentimes a booklet that you can take with you as well that has a schedule as well as what the site rules might be. Always important. Gate is also a great place to ask for information and to connect you to the chatelaine. They will usually also have a site token that you can wear just to show that you checked in. Now, the next thing is to ask. Sometimes newcomers can be a little bit uncomfortable asking people what they're doing. Trust me, people in the SCA, Scadians, we like to talk to you about what we're doing. Sometimes the trick is realizing that you might have learned more than you ever thought that you needed to learn. And you walk away knowing a lot more than you ever thought you would about maybe something like making glasses in period, or, you know, learning how many threads were in a certain type of shirt per inch. But it's a great way to go down a rabbit hole of learning new types of hobbies that you might be interested in. I guarantee you, especially after your first few events, you're going to leave with so many hobbies, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. So definitely ask. If you see someone in interesting garb or someone doing something interesting, just feel free to ask them. And as we previously spoke, a lot of events have court. If there's court at an event, ask someone or the chatelaine if you can sit with them so that they can explain what is happening. Court can be a lot of fun. It's a great way to get together with people after an event. You know, it's a great kind of coming together and cool off after a great, exciting event. Generally, court is where people will wear their best garb, so it's a great place to see all the fun fashion in the SCA, and again, see the pomp and ceremony. So it's a great way to both experience camaraderie and to see what's going on. Now, something that you may have seen with some of the previous slides is that there are different ways to address people. So if you don't know somebody and you don't know what their title is, it's acceptable to refer to them as my lord, my lady, or my noble. That's completely okay until you know what their title is. Okay, so continue about your first event. One of my favorite parts of events are merchants. So many different events have merchants. We don't call them vendors. Merchants help create a lively atmosphere at events. Going to where the merchants are is one of my favorite things to do because that's where everybody comes together. You might have armored combat people hanging out with arts and sciences people all in the same area, and it's just usually hustle, bustle, and a lot of fun. Merchants have so many different wares. They can have everything from selling garb and jewelry, handmade pottery, so much more. So definitely check out your merchant area. There are also classes generally at most events. I like to suggest checking out the website and checking out that booklet that they have at gate at the beginning of every event so that you can see what the schedule is for the day and that you can plan in advance. I also suggest a carrying bag. This is super important, especially at your first event. So I recommend putting a notebook and pen in your carrying bag for classes, taking down names, contact info, all that. Bring a drinking vessel or a bottled drink with you, non-alcoholic. A small snack if snacks are allowed on the site. So something that's easily kept like sunflower seeds or trail mix. Hand sanitizer. I always suggest hand sanitizer even before COVID came about. You never know what the bathroom situation might be, so having your own hand sanitizer, always a good idea. If you're going to be outdoors, bring SPF. Bring a small hand fan with you in case it gets a little bit warm, and all genders use hand fans. It's not just, you know, for people identifying as female. So if you identify as male, don't worry about having a hand fan. I guarantee other people do too. And also bring your wallet for ID and for cash or a card. You'll need your ID for when you check in at gate. Okay, so a few ways to become involved. There are so many ways in the SCA to become involved in both your local group as well as on a larger scale. So talk to your local officers. Find out if there are deputy officer positions in your local group. Being a local officer deputy is a great way to learn the workings of a local group and to support the local structure. For example, when we first moved here to the Barony of the Cleflands, I was really eager to jump in, find out how the group works, and try to find a way to become involved. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about are demonstrations. That's our outreach. So I spoke with our demonstration coordinator about becoming his deputy so that I could start getting into working with that and really start becoming involved. So definitely look into becoming a deputy local officer. There are also lots of ways in the arts and sciences to become involved. Take classes. Always look at classes for different events. There's always something interesting that you can take. In the MidRealm, there are whole events centered around classes, as well as the Royal University of the MidRealm, RUM. I took my first RUM event, I think it was about 2 years ago at this point, and I went with a bunch of friends, and it was outside of, I think it was Cincinnati, and we had a great time. I took some classes on stuff that I didn't even know what I would be interested in. And I came away going, well, that was cool. Here's a new thing for me to look into. So always look at different classes that you can take. Find someone who does an activity that you are interested in and ask if you can learn from them. So if you see someone making jewelry, for example, and that's something that you're interested in, go up and ask. You know, the worst that they'll say is no, but more often than not, I guarantee you they'll talk to you and help you get involved with that same activity. Also look at if your local group has guilds. Guilds are similar to focused interest groups. So guilds can cover different interests such as dance or armor making, clothing, fiber arts, music, etc. So see if your local group has guilds. Guilds are generally very welcoming for newcomers. And as I spoke earlier, there are service opportunities. Service opportunities in the SCA are just about endless. So there are always ways to serve. Ask officers, instructors, or guilds for ways that you might be able to help at an upcoming event. Gate is usually looking for people to help check people in. There's always help needed for a kitchen crew, making announcements, helping set up or take down. There's so much to do. And one of the things that I love about service is it's also a great way to see how things work behind the scenes. So you can kind of see how the gears are moving and how you can help those gears move to better create this SCA world that we have. There are also ways to become involved in martial activities. Attend practices as a participant or a spectator. Always ask if spectators are allowed first. Want to make sure that we're doing this safely. Take a class on how to become a minister of martial lists for events and tournaments. You can even help with water bearing at martial events. This also goes with service. And this is a great way to both help from the sidelines during martial events, as well as to also interact with combatants, learn about what's going on during the field. And it's a lot of fun having them tell you stories about this battle that they were just participating in. So water bearing is a lot of fun too. Okay, so now I have contact and resources. As I said, I'm Shahzada Isfahani. On Facebook, I'm Eve Liebfried. I have my email here, and please feel free, send me a message on Facebook. I'll try to get back to you promptly. Sometimes I get a little bogged down with real life and I kind of forget to check my Facebook messages, but I will get back to you. I have a couple of links here for both the SCA homepage, the SCA Newcomers portal, and the MidRealm webpage, and a link to help you find your local group here in the MidRealm. I also like to suggest the Known World Handbook. I suggest this to both newcomers as well as established Scadians. There are over 80 articles in it that cover most aspects of the SCA, everything from getting started, going to your very first event, making your first garb, all the way to, you know, how you might address royals or how certain types of events work. You can buy that at the SCA publications part of the SCA marketplace, which I have a link there as well. Other than that, that is it for my little presentation. You know, does anybody have any questions? I'm very happy to talk to you, hear some questions, share some ideas, things like that. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I'm opening up my little chat box here too, in case anybody is muted but they want to type a question. I tend to not screen share when I'm sitting in a class. Either, you know, I don't look put together that day or something, and so I usually just type my questions in. So I have the question bar on the side here, so feel free, or if you have a question, feel free to ask.
Silence.
How about I show everybody a cute TA? Will that help break the ice? Okay. I gotta wake up the little kitty donut next to me. Hold on. Oh. This is Nimmy.
Hi, Nimmy. Nimmy should get a treat for not interrupting when she wasn't supposed to.
It's true. She fell asleep.
We also might want to work on the definition of small helper. That's a pretty big cat.
Yeah, she's on the large side.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any questions, but it was very well organized. I really liked the thought that you put into some of the language you use.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. I see Rasheen, cute kitty. Oh, thanks, Rasheen. Tiffany. Oh, thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. This was my very first virtual rum class. I was a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited that, you know, I had a good audience here. Thank you. And thank you to Rum for giving the opportunity for people to do these classes virtually. I've taken so many classes that it's just been part of my schedule now, especially during the week, which that's really fascinating. Never been able to take SCA classes like this during the week before. So thank you to Rum for that. Yay! It's been a great time.
Well, Dimitri observed that you probably have a couple more classes worth here if you wanted to do more like a series.
Oh, of my style of class?
Yeah, well, and expanding, like doing more of a, okay, you've been to your first event, let's go more in depth with certain aspects.
Oh, absolutely. I could definitely do something like that. I'm also asked sometimes by newcomers for more information on what to expect for their first event, what they should do at their first event, the different types of events. So I could definitely put something together like that if people are interested in something like that.
Also, there is the question of what is rum. You can explain it. Right. I don't need to.
Oh my gosh. So rum is the Royal University of the MidRealm. In the slide where I was talking about arts and sciences and the different events, rum is a great collaboration of people who have put together just a wide variety of arts and sciences courses. And when you take enough types of courses, you can actually earn what are called degrees. I myself would have to do a little bit more in-depth research to describe the different types of degrees, but you can earn different types of degrees. I know that Mistress Elizabeth here, I think you said that you've earned 1 degree already just during quarantine from all the rum classes that you've taken.
Maybe. Yes.
This is the last hour I need for my first degree, so.
Yay, I'm glad it's me. Thank you.
And most kingdoms have some sort of a university system. It just varies what it's called from kingdom to kingdom. I've been actually dropping in on a lot of other kingdoms classes if what's being taught in MidRealm's rum is something I've already done or I'm not as interested in.
Right. And I know at the end of the month, I'm sorry, I have a cat hair. I know at the end of the month, there's going to be a rum event as well. I believe that is about running events. Is that what it was?
We call administration. It's
administration.
Offices, events. Yeah, it is dedicated to basically learning about how the SCA works.
Oh, okay. So if, especially if there are newer people on this class right now, that might be a nice follow-up to this so that you could see a little bit more about how things work administratively. I also see Finn, really enjoyed your class. Thank you. If you have time, could you please tell us what style of garb you're wearing? Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. So I am wearing a Persian style of garb. I generally like to wear non-European style garb, both because it suits my aesthetic, as well as I like to show a non-European style of clothing, just to help broaden that aspect of what people see with the SCA. I'm wearing what's called a Taj. Try to get all the feather in there. I'm wearing a Taj. I have some earrings with little pearls on it. Mistress Elizabeth might recognize these. She made these. In Persia and in Mughal times, little pearls like this were extremely popular. You'll see pearls all over in Persian and Mughal time artistry. I'm wearing what's called a pirahan. This is kind of like your undershirt. In Europe, it might be called a chemise. And I'm wearing a jacket over it. And down the front of the jacket, there are buttons that go down pretty much to my navel. The jacket also goes down just below my knees. And what's fun with this color of, get this out of the way, this color of jacket, in the Cleveland Museum of Art, there is an extant piece of I think it's a woven fabric that has individuals from SCA time period Persia, and one of the individuals is actually wearing a jacket that's just about this exact color of blue. So when I saw this fabric, I knew I had to get it. So that's just a little bit of background about what my garb is. Did anybody have any other questions? Or are we all good? Thank you, Finn. I'm glad that everybody seemed to enjoy it. I hope that, I was of some help. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. I will be sharing this PowerPoint to the event page kind of as a takeaway, take home for you. I went definitely a lot more in-depth in the slides. I didn't want to bog down the presentation with too much information. So feel free to take a look at that. And I have my contact information on there as well. Absolutely. Thank you, Jordan, Rasheen. Thank you guys very much. Thanks, Elsbeta. I appreciate everybody coming in. Oh, and I have Facebook too.
You got a compliment on Facebook.
Satine. Thank you, Satine. I appreciate that. Okay, well, I guess that might be it for the night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Shahzada. This will be great to have also recorded so that any newcomer can look at it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, if there are other Chatelains as well that are interested in working with the PowerPoint, or if anybody has any ideas on ways to improve it, that would be great input as well. Great, thank you, everybody.